Ayahuasca, magic mushrooms, LSD, the miracle cure for PTSD. So I was definitely raised in that drugs are bad. All drugs are bad. Although, interestingly enough, we take things prescribed by the doctor, which do a lot of the same things that alternative medicines do. So I spent years studying ayahuasca and all of these things and benefits and studies and researches and what it does exactly. So for the most part, ayahuasca does what our brain does when we're in REM sleep. The problem with recovering PTSD is we usually don't get a lot of REM. If you have nightmares or terrors, you can wake yourself up. I would thrash awake the second I would hit REM because it was too many emotions for me to deal with. So I think one of the things that takes a trauma into recovery and doesn't hit PTSD is a person's ability to sleep and be able to process those things and file those emotions and file those memories in a logical manner. But when you're dealing with complex PTSD, or you're dealing with trauma compounded on top of trauma before there's a chance to recover from them, throw in a little, just get over it, and now you have a pretty messed up skull, shall we say. Way too many emotions to deal with individually. So I spent years researching, but ayahuasca is expensive and illegal in the United States for the most part, although I think they are working on that. Magic mushrooms, I've seen people on mushrooms, didn't really want to go down that route. So I spiraled, bad, really bad, for months. And something had to give. Suicide was out, you already saw that. I didn't want people to find the body, I'm not good at it. And I knew at this point that all I needed to do was do something different in my life. With PTSD, one of the reasons a lot of them are on the streets is because you can't really hold the job if you don't know when you're going to trigger, what's going to trigger you, how long you're going to be in flashbacks, the terror recovery of not wanting to be around people but not wanting to be alone. It's hard to function, especially in American society where you're supposed to just hold a job, if going to work puts you in terror because you can't handle the noises, or you can't handle the smells, or you can't handle, and if you're in flashbacks, you're not focusing. I call it dual screening, where you've got all this stuff going on in your head, and you're trying to function, you're trying to drive, you're trying to have conversations and engage, but you've got all of this other horror stuff running in your skull at the same time that you're trying to focus. I've been told that when I'm triggered that my eyes gloss over, that it's like I'm there but I'm not there, and that's the truth. I am physically present trying to carry on this conversation, but at the same time my mind is running all of these images and nightmares and all of the bad stuff, and I have awareness that this stuff is not happening right now, but those emotions are still there and the memories are still there while I'm talking to someone about what's for dinner. It's a horrible way to live, but that's generally what most therapy and medications do. They don't help get rid of the problem, they just mask it so that you dual screen. It can definitely send someone to the streets because you can't keep a job, you can't focus. You may have emotional outbursts, or in my case, I was taught to withdraw and hide. And then the bad stuff will stop happening if you just hide long enough. So I had to look at alternatives, right? Years of studying, years of people's testimonies, what they experienced, years of what the science is. So the science behind ayahuasca is it hyperactivates multiple areas in your brain at the same time so that the chemicals all run kind of in a rushy system. What this does is it gives most people hallucinations because their brain is trying to process all of this information simultaneously. It is relatively about the same thing that happens in REM, only at a higher degree, more concentrated in a shorter period of time. So I had to do it. Couldn't afford it, couldn't afford the time off work, couldn't afford, but I had to make the choice. So I scheduled, took days. Now with ayahuasca, there are generally quite a few rules depending on, where you go and what you do. Some separate boys and girls, some separate by traumas, some separate by, each place has their own. So where I was going, you were supposed to avoid meats, you were supposed to avoid alcohol, you're supposed to avoid, make sure that you're healthy before you get there. One of the reasons for ayahuasca being illegal and probably should stay in a restricted class is because it can kill you if it is mixed strong. If you don't have someone there that is trained to know what can happen when someone is on ayahuasca, they can have a heart attack. Just too many emotions, too many memories, too many things. So you can die. You can die if it's mixed wrong. You can die if you have a heart attack or go into seizures or all of those things. So it does need to be done by a professional that knows what they're doing and what to look for. I do not recommend just getting some and going home and using it by yourself unless you've already used it enough that you know how you react and how you behave on it. So the rules were, make sure you're getting sleep, make sure you're eating healthy, make sure you're taking time and going through your brain and what is it that you want to accomplish by using ayahuasca and da-da-da. These are all really good advices, even if you don't use ayahuasca. If you can take a few days to just go through your brain and where are you having problems and what is it that you want to resolve and how are you, even without ayahuasca, that's good advice. Making sure you go to bed early, staying away from caffeine. I need protein, so the no meat thing was really hard on me, but eating healthy, making sure you're getting lots of vitamins and minerals. And so the reality is a lot of times some of the healing from ayahuasca could be from the prep for ayahuasca, the things that you do to take care of yourself before you even use it. The other thing is you're taking time off work to go do this. So now you've got basically a little mini vacation. And it's not about seeing sights and it's not about making the kids happy. It's about healing, and you know that you're taking these days for healing. Both of those things are just beneficial on face value. Cleaning up your life, getting some sleep, having a healthy diet, taking time out for yourself, working on your mental health, assigning time to work on your mental health. Right there, you've got a couple of wins. The third thing that I think the ayahuasca retreats are really, really good for is, again, sometimes they separate by traumas, which means you are now spending the weekend or the week with other people that have been through similar traumas. And you're going to talk. I don't call it group therapy, but when you go someplace to work on mental health, that you're eating well, and you're there with other people that have experienced similar things, you don't even have to use the ayahuasca, and you can walk away with a huge amount of healing. So I'm going to say, if you don't want the drug factor, you're afraid to use it, you've heard nightmares and horror stories, all of this stuff, just do those other things. Clean up your eating, stay away from the, caffeine or junk food, fruits and vegetables, live healthy, try to make sure you get enough sleep, take time out for your mental health. Say, this is my weekend. Maybe you need to get a babysitter or whatever. This is my weekend for me to go through my brain and work on my emotions. And I'm going to go to a group where other domestic violence women go, or where other people that have been through violent episodes have gone, and talk to other people. Maybe if you have met some through that, maybe go have some coffee. Or, these things are all very, very helpful, even without ayahuasca. But that being said, I'd spend a lot of money taking time off work, so I'm gonna go do this. And ayahuasca affects different people differently. Just so you know that. I don't hallucinate. Yeah. There's a shaman. Most of the time ayahuasca is distributed by shamans. So we're there, and all this prep and all of this everything, and we're taking the ayahuasca, and I'm in a room full of people throwing up And don't get me wrong, it is the most disgusting thing in the world. I've had some pretty gross food. Remember, I ate rhubarb raw. Ayahuasca is like eating dirty gym socks. It is absolutely repulsive. There's a really good study, a Swedish study, I believe it was, and I'll link it to this page. And it wasn't, they wanted to study it, but they're like, how do we get people to take it? Because it is that gross. The other thing is it causes vomiting, it can cause diarrhea, it can cause all kinds of horrible physical things. So not only they're like, how do we get people to take this disgusting stuff, but how, they need to have people not throwing up if they're going to do a study. So I'll link it. But I'm in a room full of people throwing up. And I think I did upchuck a little bit too because it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And I'm just hungry and tired. And everybody else, you can tell, they're crying and, maybe they're saying stuff or moving around or doing stuff and they're hallucinating. And the shaman kept checking on me. And I'm like, I'm just really tired. I'm really, really hungry and I'm really, really tired. And I just want to go to sleep. And nothing, no hallucinations. He's like, well, maybe, try some more ayahuasca. He had some eye drops and he had some other stuff. And I'm like, no, nothing. I just want to go to sleep. I'm hungry and I want to go to sleep. So initially he didn't let me eat because that's, we're waiting for the medicine to kick in and I could be vomiting like all the rest of these people too. And then he did come to me a little bit later and said that there was somebody else that likewise was really hungry. So he let them go eat and then now they're having the experience because that's what ayahuasca is, right? An experience. And now they're having the experience. So maybe if I went and ate too, maybe that would help me have the experience. So I went and ate and I came back and I think he gave me some more ayahuasca or whatever. I'm like, I'm just really tired. I just want to go to sleep. And I did, out cold. Like, I don't know. It was a few hours. And then everybody else came down and they built a campfire or whatever. And we all went out and people were talking about their experiences and, what their hallucinations were and how they found healing. And it's a really bonding experience. I do recommend it, even if you don't use the ayahuasca. Everything coming into it and the whole weekend retreat thing is just awesome. And so they're asking me about mine and I'm like, nothing. I got nothing. I was hungry and I took a nap. And now we're having a campfire. And they tell you it's different. Every time you use it, it'll be different. So, we're at a retreat, so it's going to happen again tomorrow or whatever. So I'm listening and I'm just, and people are telling why they came there. Some had really bad experiences, were in the hospital. They thought they were going to die or were diagnosed with cancer. DV victims, and it was a very healing experience. And I did get a really good nap. So the next day comes, and again, you're in the same place with all of these other people and they're there specifically to share their pains and their hurts. And that's helpful too, when you hear other people talk about that their life is not perfect. And I think some of them were quite successful in business, had some money, others were poor like me, saved up for the event. So you hear about other lives and lifestyles and different things. Same thing, only this time I don't think I even threw up. So drinking the teas, taking the tablets, I'm just hungry and I want to take a nap. Only now the shaman has already seen me not trip out. So he's like, okay, so let me go eat. And I kind of sat in a room for a little bit and just kind of played my video game. And he's like, nothing? He could not believe it. I'm like, nothing. And I think I took like twice, 3 times the amount of everyone else. And they're all tripping out. And the shaman's like, well, maybe just go, because it is, for most shamans, it is a religious experience. So he told me I wasn't being respectful of Mother Iowa, and I should just go, to the room and lay down, and then I would have the experience. So I go and I lay down, and I'm just bored out of my mind. And I'm like, okay, I'm really tired. I did get to eat, so I'm not hungry, so I'll just take a nap. And that was it. Woke up again. It seems like he did check on me a couple times, and I was like, I just want to sleep, And everybody else is crying and talking and vomiting, and I just take a nap. And same thing. I, got up when everybody else got up and bonfire, and everybody talked and had a wonderful time. And at this point, I'm pretty mad because I just paid all this money and took all this time off work to be able to go have this experience, and I got nothing out of it. I got nothing. So that's my experience with ayahuasca. It's really good for you, and it's the experience, but I don't hallucinate. The shaman said, because I asked if this is normal or, how often, and he said every once in a while that people are not ready for the experience. And so, but I took more than everybody else. I should have had some kind, and it was the same dosing. It's not like I got a placebo and they got the real stuff. It was this out of the same packaging, out of the same, I think they were actually making it that morning and stuff. So I didn't hallucinate. I'm kind of mad at me. My brain is that messed up that all this time, all this money, all this hope and dreams. It is true, though, that I did walk in with a lot of science and a lot of study, and I didn't believe it to be, I did believe that people hallucinated just based on the chemicals that get messed with in the brain. I was 100% sure that I would hallucinate, but I didn't think of it as a spiritual experience. I just thought of it as an experience. So, packing up, leaving, crying, upset. I didn't have the healing that all of these other people had. And it's a couple days to get home. And, I'm racking my brain, and I'm like, well, it was worth it because I got to meet other people that had similar traumas. It took a few days off and focused on my mental health and my mental well-being. And even if I'm not fixed per se, at least I tried. Sometimes you just have to try something just to have it tried. I'm on my way home, and I don't know if it was a day or so. So I already spent a couple days getting there, cleaning up my diet, making sure I go to bed on time, getting some sleep, talking to other people, appreciating and accepting that this is my time for my mental health. So I'm already kind of in a little bit of a better place. And on my way home, I started getting memories. Not flashbacks. I'm very familiar with the difference. A flashback is intrusive, invasive, and you can't change the channel. That's, in being traumatized by flashbacks, people are like, oh, change the channel, think of something different, put on, you just don't think about it, block it out. And I kept telling them, I cannot. You don't, they did not have a concept of that when you are in flashbacks, you cannot just change the channel and think of something else. Otherwise, they wouldn't be called flashbacks, right? A memory is when you have a conscious ability to control what's in your brain. A flashback is, this is in your face. This is what's happening. And amygdala hijacking, look it up. Your emotions have now taken over. So, and some of these memories were pretty disturbing. Some of them were really disturbing, as a matter of fact. And I did the check, because I'm like, where did that come from? And I could change the channel in my head. I could think of something else. And then I'd go back and be like, okay, so that was, and then other things started clicking in. I've had people apologize to me through the years about if they ever hurt me, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And my brain was putting those things together, the things that they had done to me and what they were apologizing for. And I was like, oh my word. These things are true. These aren't hallucinations. This isn't, I'm imagining things. These were true events that happened that I had just shoved so far back in my memories because I wasn't strong enough, I wasn't capable, willing to handle these things. They just got compounded back there. So there was a whole world of ugly going on that I wasn't recognizing being there. So now I'm on my way home. I don't have a shaman anymore. I don't have group therapy anymore. Right? Basically by myself. I mean, they're strangers, but you're not going to talk to them. And so I kind of went down that rabbit hole again of what else is in there. So I was kind of correlating and placing, and now that I have the memories of them, what is going on? And I got angry. I got really, really angry. I started going over my life and decisions I'd made and things I'd believed and how I was treated by other people. sorry, bad camera. And I needed it to stop now. I felt like I had thrown my entire life away. Let's see if I can get this camera to fix, because I really don't want to do another take. I felt like I'd thrown my entire life away being there for other people and ignoring myself, because that was the right thing to do, that was the good thing to do, and I remember I got back home and I was like, this ends now. Now it's going to be about me. I am done serving other people. I am done being there for other people. I don't have time to be nice. That was my phrase. I do not have time to be nice anymore. I've spent my life being nice and being accepting, and now it's going to be about me. And just the bitterness and the hate in me was just overwhelming, because now I could see all of these things, and I could see the molestations, and I could see the rapes, and I could see being tossed around like a rag doll. And I could recognize, that's a huge thing with child abuse. I could recognize how small I was when these people were doing these things. Grown-ups mistreating small children. Because before, when you're living it, it takes you back to being that small child. But now that my circuits were rewired, I could see how little and tiny I was when the abuses were happening. And I was furious. Maybe not per se at the world, but definitely at the injustice. So I lived that way for a little while, and I realized how consumed I was with hate, and thought, I don't want to live my life like this. This hate is just as bad as the blind ignorance. And I still had some triggering, and I still had some, I could sleep better, not like 100%, because now remember I'm full of rage. And I don't remember how long it was, but it wasn't too long after, maybe a few months. And I was like, you know what? Ayahuasca affects different people differently. The chemicals, the scientific studies that I had done on ayahuasca were valid. It did actually help get those chemicals and those memories flowing through the circuitry. It did actually make some functioning in... I'm so sorry. One of these days I'll get a better camera and maybe I'll redo it then. Let's see if we take the light away. Does that help? So it did, the science behind the ayahuasca worked. Even if I didn't trip, even if I didn't hallucinate, even if I didn't run around naked or declare epiphanies, the actual opening up the blockages in the chemicals, the actual rewiring of the circuits, I'm calling them circuits there, there's a lot of science. Anyways, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to see if I can get some of this other stuff. Because technically, and that's one thing too, is you hear all these people have ayahuasca and then now they're empathetic and now the whole world's connected and everybody is wonderful and sweet and everything. And I walked away with hate and anger. So I did it again. And I could kind of see where some of those, I can't say crosswires, but I could kind of see why I went from loving the whole world and just wanting to be empathetic to hate, because I wasn't identifying and recognizing things. I wasn't doing, but again, no visions, no hallucinations, no unicorns or rainbows, no, I've heard some celebrity stories, no forests running out of my mouth, no vomiting. And actually, to be honest, I did, in the future, I did eat. I'm like, okay, this just makes me hungry. So I did eat and make sure that I didn't have to worry about sitting there starving. Yeah, and then I got a little bit more balance. And then another 6 months or whatever went by, and I did it again. Another 6 months or so went by. And it wasn't, the triggering got less and less. Let me rephrase. The triggering was still happening, but I could identify it as a trigger. So I do need to probably do a separate one on triggers and signs and symptoms. But I could start thinking things through and doing things, working on stuff instead of just freaking out. Because with PTSD, you're afraid of that trigger. You're afraid of those flashbacks. You're afraid to go to sleep because of the nightmares. So that kind of helped. And I think also having the ayahuasca helped me know that there was something I could do in the future. So I think that was really one of those small victories. It's like, okay, if I lose it, I know ayahuasca will put me to sleep. I know once I sleep, my brain will start functioning. And then I can wake up and then address things more appropriately. So I think there was a lot of comfort there. Yeah, so that's my experience with ayahuasca. Didn't run around naked, didn't have any hallucinations. I got hungry and I went to sleep. Now, the hunger thing though, there was actually one other person with me that likewise, I think I told you the shaman said somebody else ate and then they had an experience. So if I ate too, then maybe I would have an experience. In talking to her later, she likewise was starved as a child. Now, she said her starvation was intentional. She wanted the grown-ups around her to get in trouble, so even if she was given food, she would not eat, so that way she could accuse them of not feeding her. So that's a whole different psychological problem. Mine was simply there was not any food to eat. But both of us felt that childhood starvation, and when we used ayahuasca, we were hungry, because that's our subconscious is like, you don't want to be hungry, you don't want to be hungry, you don't want to be hungry, you don't want to be hungry. So you eat. The other, if you read and studies, people say that ayahuasca is temporary, that people may act or behave, and I guarantee you that if their neurons are connected and their chemicals are flowing in the way that they should, and they are remembering things and making adjustments accordingly, that they will act and behave differently. But I was told it lasts for about 4 months. And I found that very interesting, because it takes about 4 months for society to turn you back into a zombie. Because that's usually what happens if people have ayahuasca and they have an epiphany, an experience, is they go back and they start changing their life. And a lot of people are using ayahuasca because they had a drug problem, they had an alcohol problem, they had ayahuasca is absolutely known for killing addictions. Like, people go in with bad habits that everyone wants them to quit. They use ayahuasca, and when they come home from that, they don't want to use drugs anymore. They don't want to drink anymore. They don't want to, but they also want to change their job, do something different in their relationship status, maybe change their lifestyle, move from a high-rise complex to going camping. So they make all of these other adjustments when they get back too, and that stops the drug use, the drinking, and the other behaviors, because they're making these adjustments that affect the other thing. So I definitely, if you're having issues, I do recommend it. If you can't afford or can't do the ayahuasca thing, I definitely recommend doing everything that ayahuasca instructs you to do. Take a weekend off for yourself or a retreat and start going through your brain. And if you were to do ayahuasca, what are the things and issues that you would like to work on? Meet and talk and be around. I mean, if you can't meet them, again, PTSD.online, that is the purpose of that site, is so that you can come in contact with, not physically, but other people that have had similar experiences. The healing from that is overwhelming. If I had a takeaway of the number one most beneficial thing from my ayahuasca retreat, it was being able to talk to other people that had similar experiences, and being able to talk about it openly and honestly, and not in fear that if they found out these things. Because people go to ayahuasca retreat to overcome drugs, to overcome alcohol, to overcome PTSD, they are gathering together to talk about traumas and things society doesn't want to hear about. So anyways, yeah, it only lasts 4 months. That's usually because when you get back and you want to change your job and you want to move and you want to change your relationship status and you want to do all of these things, because now you know where your malfunction is, you behave and you act differently. And then People indoctrinate and tell you, no, it's a good job, you should keep that job. I understand that you hate it, but maybe you should just take more vacations. Maybe you should we'll just have a drink and you'll relax after work. And then the next thing you know, 4 months later, you've kept your job, you've kept everything the same, and you're drinking again. Yeah. So, do people lose their mobbers? I think if society defines being a zombie as having it together, yeah, I'd say you could do ayahuasca and lose your marbles. Because when you do, and you have your memories come back, or you have an epiphany and the hallucinations, I've done it several times now, and I've never hallucinated, not one time. I usually do get a really good nap, though. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't throw up, I don't get diarrhea, I just have a really good nap. Sometimes a good night's sleep is worth it, right? Yeah, so if you do it, and you're fighting all of those things, maybe just think about not being a zombie.